And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
Hello everybody, I'm Tom Vasel, and today we're taking a look at Altar Quest. Altar Quest is a dungeon crawl from the Sadler Brothers. This is an homage of sorts to Hero Quest, which is a game I played a lot as a kid. But it also has their card system where there's different card combinations. They've taken the idea from Smash Up of putting different decks together, and that's been prevalent in the different games that the Sadler Brothers have done. Now, this system that they've done, I found, for me personally, I've found to be overly complex in the different games that they've done, to the point where I found their games enjoyable, but each time I look at them, I'm like, I don't want to play it. It's so much work I always find that I'm forgetting the rules. There's a lot going on. And this is a dungeon crawler, of which, honestly, at this point, there are dozens and dozens of them out there. So can this one stand out? So like I said, I'm going into this with some trepidation because of all those variables, and I wasn't sure that I was going to enjoy the experience. But I certainly wanted to, because I know that these guys love fantasy. There's a lot, they put a lot into this game, and it got a lot of buzz. So I'm not going to go over every rule in this game because there's a lot of different things going on. I'm just going to show you some of the basic concepts so you can get an idea of how the game plays. Here we go. In this game, you're going to play 1 to 4 heroes. It doesn't matter. Even if you play one solo, you can play with 2 heroes. These are the 4 heroes that are included with the game. Myrene Duval, who's like a vampire warrior. Cedrin Highmore, kind of your cleric to some degree. Quella, who is a harpy fighter. And Rowan Laughlin, who is basically a halfling thief style character. Now, each of these has a certain number of hit points that they take before they die. They each have an armor that they'll subtract from enemy attacks. They also have some stats here: might, fortitude, agility, willpower, charisma, and intellect next to them. Now, many times in this game, for attacking and for other tests, you're going to be rolling these dice here. And when you roll these dice, you're trying to roll this symbol, which is a success. You'll need a certain number of successes. Even better than a success would be one of these, which is a success, and you get to roll another die. And then on a couple sides here, you have focus. When you roll these, you can either get focus tokens, or you can spend focus tokens to turn them into successes. Not only that, next to the board, there will be some rune dice that are rolled. Different symbols will be available, and you have the opportunity to use these rune symbols to use special abilities on your characters. These rune symbols, when used, will be re-rolled, and of course enemies might be able to use them also. Each character is going to come with some starting equipment, so you can see that Rowan starts with Trapper's Rope and a Bury Knife, and you can see here that he can use this to make an attack action. This lets him exhaust a minion within range or help get rid of a trap. He can exhaust these with certain runes to do special things. But players also have a deck of cards, and this deck of cards is going to be where you're even more differentiated besides any special ability that you might have in your stats. And so players will be drawing these cards, and they have the opportunity to use these cards. So play this on a hero within range, and this is the range that you have here. I can heal 2 damage, gain a focus, and draw a card. Or exhaust using a fire rune before rolling dice for a test. I get +1 die for that test. And so these cards are going to really help your characters feel different, and you need to know when to use them. When playing a game of this, you're going to pick a group of enemies, and so it comes with 3 different groups: the Frocks, the Raglanders, and the Thralls. You're going to pick one major bad guy, the villain, Winora Morn, Gert, or Bulks the Belchward, and then you're going to kind of pick a mission here: the rescue, the hunt, the escape, the cleansing, the search, and the showdown. So you can see here that you have 6 times 3 times 3 different combinations that you can go up against. That's not going to be the only mixing up, but each of these bad guys has a deck that you'll be going through each turn. The villain will have a card to go through, and eventually the villain themselves is going to appear. While whatever bad guys you pick, like for example, here's a gargoyle, which is shown here. You can see they also have stats just like the heroes do. Different enemies are going to show up and they're going to activate. But it's not just enemies, other cards will show up from the villain deck. And then you will have specific missions here. When you pick these, they're going to give you kind of the rules for that. So when I pick this here, it will tell me all the different things for this particular quest. And then there's cards involved with this one also. There's a big map that you'll be playing with, and players will have the opportunity to pick the room that they want to start with, and you have a spot in each room, and enemies may spawn in these spots, and different things will happen. You know, your very first room, you're going to put stairs in that room, and then you'll have different actions that players can take on their turn. And essentially the way the game is going to work is players will get certain number of actions that they can take on their turn. They'll be able to move 3 spaces. They can use an action on a card. They can interact with different things. They can play the cards from their deck that they have. They can draw a card. They can rest, where they can discard supplies to heal 2 damage. Or they can, just channel, which gives them a focus, or change an altar die to a side of their choice. So there are many things that they're going to do, but many times you're going to go and you're going to open up a new room. And so when you go into a new room, one of the things that you will do in that room is you will draw a feature card. And this game comes with feature cards, and each of these feature cards is going to give you some sort of thing that's going to happen in that room. So for example, here is a weapons rack. And the game actually comes with miniatures for all the different things. So, for example, I got a weapons rack that will now be in this room. And enemies will spawn in the room too. There's a deck of lurkers that you can add special minions to enemies, but you'll have different minions that will show up. The game in the minion deck itself, so when you go through the minion deck, so let's say I'm going through the thralls here and I'm going up against gargoyles. What if there's 3 different gargoyles? You'll notice that there's a blue line, a green line, and a red line, and that will allow me to put bases on the different gargoyles to differentiate them. So heroes are going to get these 3 actions, and you can take the same action multiple times and go through them. And many of the actions are going to be going through and fighting off the enemies, trying to kill them, or to activating things. You'll find these different things to activate as you go through. You'll also find altars. And when you get to an altar, like for example, I can activate the burning altar to do whatever it says on this card. But the heroes are also going to have to deal with threat. As enemies show up, they're going to show up in a hero's threat area, and each turn they're going to deal with that. And every bad guy card deck comes out, and a lot of them are going to come out, and not just from the bad guys, but also from this deck here. There may be different cards that will activate, and there will be a whole line of bad guy cards that will activate each turn. Then heroes will take their action, and the bad guys activate, and you'll keep going to either the heroes win or fail in their mission that they're doing. Now, there are a lot of pieces in this game, and I'm pretty happy with the components. I really like the miniatures themselves. You'll notice here they come in their trays. I like, it's really unnecessary. I think they could have done tiles for things here like the bookcase or the workbench, but this gives me a strong Hero Quest vibe, and I like these. I think they would probably look better painted and everything. In fact, everything would look better painted. But I really like the methodology here, where if you have, again, multiple gargoyles, putting the yellow on the bottom of this one and the red and the blue on the bottom of this one, it's an easy way to differentiate between them as they go around. The cards are good. I might complain that the artwork on the cards, I'm not a huge fan of this artwork. There's a lot of cards that don't have artwork on them, and sometimes a lot of cards have, like these, all have the exact same artwork. The artwork for me is fine. The board itself, this gives me real strong vibes to Hero Quest. And there's lots of cool things. The dice are good in this game. The rune dice I find to be, these are the attack dice. The rune dice I find to be a little difficult to tell apart. But still, you get a ton of content in this box. Now, I would say probably the biggest problem with this game, component-wise, is the rule book. I feel like once you understand the game, I can look here at the back of the rule book and I understand what to do. Not a problem. I understand how to play the game now, but I had to go online and watch multiple videos. I did not find this game to be a simple game to understand or pick up, honestly. But like I said, a lot of content, a lot of good miniatures, good components. There's a lot to unpack here. So let's start with a very, very, very positive thing I have about this. This game includes the possibility, if you want to go through a campaign. In fact, it even has a story guide here for Out of Luxon story guide, where there's a little bit of story involved and chapters. Okay, fine. We see that in a lot of games, and I find a lot of these times to be exhausting because when I play these, sometimes I just want to set up and play a dungeon. Well, on the positive side, Alter Quest does that. So many times I'm saying I don't want to play through the whole campaign. Alter Quest says you don't have to play through the whole campaign. Just put together, pick a villain, pick a bunch of minions, pick a quest, play through that. Yes. Thank you. I'm so glad about that, and I really like that part of this, that you don't have to go through the quest. In fact, I honestly don't even have any desire to go through the long quest because I have enough other dungeon crawlers that do that. To be able to take one and just play a straight-up single game here is exciting, and I like that. I also really enjoy the fact that they kind of went outside the box with the different characters. I don't think I've ever in my life seen a harpy hero before. And I just like the combination of characters and the different bad guys. You got a giant frog. That sort of thing is interesting to me. Also on the positive side of things, I like the different rune dice, spelled with an H, R-H-U-N-E. And that's a cool concept where they provide different, essentially, elements that can be used to cast different spells. The card crafting system, or whatever the system's called at this point in time, like I said, I find this system to be a bit complex. And here you have the same thing. It's a quest, a villain, and minions, and there's different combinations, and you put them together, and you have all these different things. It's not as complex in this as it was in their other games, in my opinion, but there's still a lot going on. This is not a game that's that intuitive. At its core, it's not that complex of a game. The combat system, which I love what I call exploding dice. Exploding dice are you roll die, oh, it gives me a hit and I get to roll again. I roll, oh, I get it again, and you keep going till you fail. That's awesome. I love that sort of thing. And I also like that the dice you're going to hit the bad guys. Yes, the dice are in this game, and you're mitigating the rolls and everything, but you're going to do some damage or a lot of damage. Of course, they're doing similar things to you. But I just like that system, and it works really well. So I find this to be a little bit complex, but once you know it, it goes down. But there is that hurdle, and even though I said I went online and looked up videos of various people how to play, I did not find a very good one. I just had to intuit from multiple videos on how to play the game. I didn't find there to be one solid thing, and I felt like the rule book here kind of failed in that regard, and it almost felt like that when they explained the rules here, that they assumed you knew how to play dungeon crawl games and everything before. So that I found to be problematic. The game itself also has a few other problems. One, I feel like, so I have the box, and I'm going to talk about this in a separate video, of the Kickstarter content, which adds more heroes and a bunch of other things. I feel like I would be a little bit more unhappy with Alter Quest without that extra content. Don't get me wrong, I played this game without the extra content, just by itself. But particularly the room features. I mean, I found the weapons rack a lot because there's not a lot of different room feature cards. And that extra thing adds, I think, like 4 or 5 more room feature cards. That makes a difference. And there's also more heroes and more villains, and the combinations go up tremendously. And also the rune dice in that are just so much better. So if I hadn't kickstarted this, I might not have enjoyed it as much as just the base game itself. Also, The storyline is a little loosey-goosey. You have this board, but you can start in any room you want. As you go through these rooms and you find different features, the map itself is kind of there as a background piece and isn't there in the forefront because you can start in any room, go to any room. And so you're using the map to move around and bad guys to move around. But there's not a strong story. Like, I didn't go into this room and there's a river running through it, and that river must go into another room. No, there's like no cohesiveness there, which again allows it to be this single play, but for some people that might be a bit of a problem. Finally, the biggest problem that people are going to have with this game is the checks. And by that I mean, after a while, when you're halfway through a dungeon crawl or whatever, you are checking a lot of cards. I do my actions, you do your actions, and now, boom, 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 boom. We're just going through card after 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 card, going through them, and that can be, a bit, like, okay, check this card, do this, do that. There is a ton to keep track of in this game. Now, despite all that, I really like the game. So, and I think, I mean, it would probably be much higher if there wasn't these problems. As it is, I don't normally mention my numerical rating in a review, but here it would be an 8 out of 10. That's a very good rating. These things cause some problems for me with the game itself, but it is fun, and it feels different than other dungeon crawlers that are out there. And like I said, the fact that I can do a one-off dungeon is a huge bonus. Now, I do feel very strongly, I played the majority of my playing with this has been solo. I don't normally do that with dungeon crawls. I want to play together with a team. This is a cooperative game. You're playing against the dungeon itself. And I feel very strongly that I will not play this with more than 2. I have not actually. I've only played it with 1 or with 2. And I feel pretty strongly that that is where it's going to end. Because there's so much going on, and it feels like it would slow down to a crawl with more players. And even with one, when I play by myself, I pick 2 characters, and it's not too hard to control the 2 different characters. And I find that to be a very enjoyable process, and it's something I can pull out, easily set up, and put away, which again is a big bonus over other games in this particular genre. Alter Quest is a love letter of sorts to Hero Quest. It's not nearly as simple as Hero Quest, but again, Hero Quest is also so simple that there's not a lot of strategy and tactics in it. There is strategy and tactics in Alter Quest. There's a lot going on. And it's kind of weird because I said I want that extra Kickstarter content, but some of the things in here I am happy with. I'm happy with the number of different enemies, and I'm happy with the number of missions and things. I feel like that combination, there's a ton of. And I feel like the 4 different characters, they all have their ups and downs. Like, I'm not a big fan of the cleric guy. He can heal, but whoopee-doo. I love the vampire attack lady. She's pretty awesome. So, I mean, I guess there's a character for each person. So this is an interesting game. I think a lot of people are going to like it. I have a strong suspicion that the solo crowd is going to be the folks who enjoy it the most, because this is a very easily soloable one. And when you're going through all these card checks, sometimes it's easier to do that sort of thing when you're keeping track of them yourself. So not perfect, small flaws throughout it, but I found it to be fun, and that's what I think of Alter Quest. I'm Tom Vasel. You've been watching The Dice Tower. Dice Tower Judgment approved.